Cancel her ticket. She's not part of this family. The words sliced through the noise of the crowded airport terminal like a knife. My mother-in-law's voice carried across the check-in counter, loud and deliberate, meant to be heard by everyone within earshot. Heads turned. A businessman in a suit glanced over his newspaper. A mother pulled her child closer, whispering. The gate agent froze, my passport still in her hand, eyes darting between me and the elegant woman standing beside me with her arms crossed. My face burned. Heat crawled up my neck as I felt dozens of strangers' eyes land on me, judging, pitying, wondering what I'd done to deserve this public rejection. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. My throat had closed up completely. Behind us, my husband's two sisters shifted their weight uncomfortably, staring at their phones. His brother cleared his throat but said nothing. The agent looked back at me, her expression apologetic but uncertain, fingers hovering over her keyboard. My mother-in-law smiled, a cold, satisfied smile that told me this was exactly what she'd wanted. Public humiliation, complete erasure. My name is Lauren. I'm 32 years old, and I've been married to Marcus for 3 years. That moment at the airport wasn't the first time my mother-in-law, Patricia, had tried to exclude me from the family. But it was the first time she'd done it so publicly, so cruelly, with such obvious satisfaction. I stood there, trembling, my carry-on bag hanging from my shoulder, while Patricia waited for the gate agent to comply with her demand. This vacation had been planned for months. A week-long trip to a beach resort in the Caribbean, a celebration of her late husband's memory. I'd been included in the planning emails, had bought new clothes for the trip, had actually believed that maybe this time would be different. Maybe Patricia would finally accept me as part of her family. I'd been so naive. Now, standing at that check-in counter with strangers staring and my husband's family silent behind me, I realized the truth. She would never accept me. And if I wanted to survive in this family, I needed to stop waiting for acceptance and start demanding respect. Patricia's smile widened as the seconds ticked by. She was enjoying this, savoring my discomfort like fine wine. The gate agent looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I need to clarify, is this passenger not traveling with your party?" Patricia leaned forward, her diamond bracelet catching the fluorescent light. "That's correct. There's been a misunderstanding. She shouldn't have been included in the booking. We're a close family, you see, just blood relatives." The way she emphasized blood relatives made my stomach turn. I wasn't blood. I was just the woman who'd married her son, the outsider who'd somehow infiltrated their perfect family circle. My hands clenched around the handle of my suitcase. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell everyone watching that I had every right to be on this trip, that I'd paid for my own ticket, that I was legally part of this family. But making a scene would only prove Patricia right, that I was too emotional, too dramatic, too different to truly belong. So I swallowed the rage and stood there silently, waiting. I turned to look at Marcus, my husband, standing 3 people back in our group. He was staring at the departure board above our heads, jaw tight, carefully avoiding my eyes. "Marcus," I said quietly. He didn't respond. His brother, Kyle, elbowed him gently, but Marcus just shook his head slightly, a tiny movement that spoke volumes. He wasn't going to defend me. Not here, not now, maybe not ever. That realization hurt worse than Patricia's words. I could handle a difficult mother-in-law. I'd read enough advice columns and forum posts to know that toxic mothers-in-law were practically a cliché. But a husband who wouldn't stand up for you, who would let his mother humiliate you in public rather than risk upsetting her, that was something different. That was betrayal. Patricia noticed Marcus's silence and her smile grew even more triumphant. She'd won this round, and we both knew it. Her son had chosen her over me, just like she'd always known he would. I felt something inside me shift in that moment, not breaking, hardening, like steel being forged in fire. The gate agent cleared her throat, clearly desperate to resolve this awkward situation. "Ma'am," she said to me directly, "if there's an issue with your booking, perhaps we could." "There's no issue with my booking," I interrupted, finding my voice at last. It came out steadier than I expected. "I have my confirmation number, my passport, and my credit card. The ticket was purchased separately from the family booking. I'm traveling to the same destination, but my reservation is independent." I pulled out my phone and showed her my email confirmation. The agent's face relaxed with relief, a clear-cut situation, proper documentation, no family drama she'd have to navigate. "Then we can proceed with your check-in, ma'am." Patricia's expression flickered with annoyance. She'd assumed my ticket was bundled with the family booking, something she could control or cancel. She hadn't expected me to have the foresight to book separately. I'd done it specifically because I didn't trust her, and now that paranoia had saved me. "Thank you," I said to the agent, handing over my passport. Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line. Round 1, Lauren. On the plane, Patricia made sure I understood my place. She'd orchestrated the seating arrangements so that all the family members were clustered together in rows 7 through 9. Marcus and his siblings, their spouses and children, all within easy conversation distance. My seat was in row 23. Alone. When I walked down the aisle, Marcus glanced up from his window seat, surrounded by his family, and gave me a helpless shrug. His sister Caroline actually looked sympathetic, but she didn't offer to switch seats. Nobody did. I settled into my seat between a businessman who immediately put in earbuds and a college student who fell asleep before takeoff. For 4 hours, I had no contact with the family I'd supposedly come on vacation with. I could hear them occasionally, laughter floating back from their section, Patricia's voice rising above the others as she told some story that had everyone chuckling. I wasn't angry anymore. I was thinking, Patricia had declared war at the airport, and I'd narrowly avoided the first casualty. But this vacation wasn't over. We had 7 days ahead, and she would keep trying to push me out to prove I didn't belong. I needed a strategy. I needed to be smarter, calmer, more patient than she was. The resort was stunning. White sand beaches, crystal clear water, palm trees swaying in the warm breeze. Under different circumstances, I would have been thrilled. Our group gathered in the lobby while Patricia checked us in. She'd arranged everything, of course, booked the rooms, planned the excursions, made dinner reservations. Control was her love language. I hung back while she spoke to the front desk staff in that commanding voice she used when she wanted to sound important. "The Lancaster party," she announced. "We have a family villa and 2 additional rooms." The clerk nodded, typing efficiently. Patricia leaned forward, lowering her voice but not enough. "The villa and 1 room are for family. The other room is for her." She gestured vaguely in my direction without looking at me. The clerk's expression remained professionally neutral, but I saw the slight widening of her eyes, more public humiliation, more reminders that I was separate, other, unwanted. The family shifted uncomfortably, but nobody spoke up. Marcus was studying the resort brochure like it contained the secrets of the universe. I smiled at the clerk and stepped forward to provide my own credit card for my room charges. "Thank you," I said warmly. "I appreciate your help." That first evening, the family gathered for dinner at the resort's main restaurant. Patricia had made reservations for 8:30 prime time at a table with a perfect ocean view. We sat around a large round table, Patricia at the head, naturally, with Marcus and his siblings flanking her like satellites orbiting a sun. I ended up between Kyle's wife, Sophia, and the youngest sister, Amanda, who was 24 and usually too absorbed in her phone to acknowledge my existence. The waiter brought champagne and Patricia stood to make a toast. "To family traditions," she said, raising her glass, her eyes sweeping around the table. "To the bonds that can never be broken, to those who truly belong together. May outsiders never change who we are." The word outsiders hung in the air like smoke. She looked directly at me as she said it. Amanda giggled nervously. Kyle coughed. Caroline studied her champagne like it might hold answers. Marcus closed his eyes briefly but said nothing. I lifted my glass anyway, my hand perfectly steady, and took a sip. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me react. The champagne tasted like acid going down, but I kept my face calm. After dinner, as we walked back toward the villas, Sophia caught up with me on the path. "Lauren, wait," she said quietly, glancing over her shoulder to make sure we weren't overheard. The rest of the family had moved ahead, Patricia's voice carrying back as she organized tomorrow's activities. "I just wanted to say, I don't agree with her. With Patricia, the way she treats you, it's not right." I stopped walking and looked at her. Sophia had always been kind to me, but she'd never spoken up in front of the family. "Thank you," I said simply. She twisted her hands together. "Kyle wanted to say something at the airport. He was so angry, but Patricia, she has this way of making everyone feel guilty if they don't follow her lead, like we're betraying the family if we question her." I nodded. I understood the dynamic. Patricia had spent decades training her children to defer to her authority, to prioritize family unity above individual conscience. Breaking that pattern would take more than one person's objection. I get it, I told Sophia. Really, I do. But inside, I filed away this information. Sophia was sympathetic. Kyle was angry. The family wasn't as united behind Patricia as she wanted everyone to believe. The next morning, Patricia announced at breakfast that she'd arranged a family snorkeling excursion. Just the family, she emphasized, looking around the table. The boat only holds 8 people, so it's perfect for us. She didn't need to say it explicitly. 8 people meant Marcus, his 3 siblings, Sophia, Caroline's husband, Amanda, and Patricia herself. Not me. I was person number 9, the one who didn't fit in the perfectly sized boat. Marcus shifted in his seat but remained silent. I took a bite of my toast, chewing slowly, giving myself time to control my reaction. Then I smiled. That sounds lovely, I said. I'll explore the resort, maybe get a massage or something. Patricia blinked, clearly thrown by my pleasant response. She'd expected hurt feelings, maybe tears, definitely some visible sign that her exclusion had wounded me. Instead, I was acting like this was exactly what I wanted. Oh, she said, recovering quickly. Well, good. The excursion leaves at 10. I watched them leave from my balcony an hour later, a small group heading toward the marina. Once they disappeared from view, I grabbed my beach bag and went to explore the resort grounds. If Patricia thought leaving me alone would break me, she had severely underestimated me. The resort staff were friendly and chatty, especially once they realized I was on my own and not particularly interested in organized activities. I spent the morning at the quieter beach bar, the one tucked away from the main pool area. The bartender, Carlos, was probably in his 50s, with silver hair and laugh lines around his eyes. We started talking while he made my virgin piña colada. I wanted to keep my head clear. First time here, he asked. First time, I confirmed. Family vacation. Something in my tone made him look at me more closely. Ah, he said knowingly. One of those family vacations. I laughed despite myself. Is it that obvious? Carlos leaned on the bar. I've worked here 12 years. I've seen every kind of family dynamic you can imagine. And I've learned that the people drinking alone at my bar at 10 a.m. usually have interesting stories. I found myself telling him the basics, not everything, but enough. The exclusion, the constant reminders that I didn't belong. Carlos listened without judgment. The Lancaster group, he asked. Your mother-in-law, I nodded. His expression shifted subtly. Interesting. Carlos wiped down the bar and lowered his voice. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but your mother-in-law has stayed here before. 3 years ago. She made quite an impression. My interest sharpened. Oh, he glanced around to make sure no other staff were within earshot. She booked the presidential villa, demanded all sorts of special accommodations, told everyone she was some kind of VIP. Our manager bent over backwards trying to accommodate her. Then when it came time to check out, there was a problem with her credit card. The charges didn't go through. She insisted it was the hotel's error, made a huge scene in the lobby. What happened? I asked. Carlos shrugged. Eventually it got sorted out, but there were some unpaid charges left over. The hotel wrote them off rather than deal with the drama, but management flagged her account. This time, when she booked, they made sure to get a deposit up front. I sat back, processing this information. Patricia, who was always so perfectly composed, so concerned with appearances and family reputation, had stiffed a hotel on charges. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. Carlos nodded. Sometimes information is the best weapon. Use it wisely. The family returned from snorkeling around 2 in the afternoon, sunburned and animated. I was at the main pool when they arrived, reading a book under an umbrella. Patricia led the group, describing the colorful fish they'd seen, her voice carrying across the pool deck. She spotted me and her expression tightened, like she was disappointed to see me still here, still calm, still present. I waved. She didn't wave back. That afternoon, while I was floating in the pool, I overheard Patricia talking to another resort guest, a woman in an expensive swimsuit. Are you here with family? The woman asked Patricia. Oh, yes, Patricia replied loudly. My children and their spouses, we're very close, do this every year. She paused deliberately. Well, most of us are family. One is just renting space, you might say, not really part of our traditions. The woman glanced in my direction. Patricia's tone had made it obvious who she meant. I saw pity in her eyes. Patricia was still talking, her voice projecting. Some people just don't understand family bonds. They try to insert themselves, but blood is thicker than water, isn't it? I ducked under the water, letting the cool silence envelop me. When I surfaced, I headed back to my room. That night, alone in my room, I pulled out my phone and started a private note. I titled it Receipts. I wrote down everything. The airport incident with as many details as I could remember. The seating arrangements on the plane. The outsiders' toast at dinner. The snorkeling excursion I'd been excluded from. The comments by the pool. I included dates, times, witnesses. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with this information, but instinct told me to document everything. My journalism professor in college had always said, "When you think you might need evidence, you definitely need evidence. Keep records." I also wrote down what Carlos had told me about Patricia's previous stay at this resort. The unpaid charges, the scene in the lobby, the flagged account. That was leverage if I needed it. I wasn't naturally vindictive. I'd never planned revenge in my life, but Patricia had declared war, and I needed to be prepared to fight back. Not with screaming or tears, those were what she expected, but with cold, calculated exposure of her hypocrisy. By the time I finished my notes, it was after midnight. I felt calmer, more in control. The next morning, I went for an early walk on the beach and ran into one of the resort's guest services coordinators, a young woman named Alexis who'd helped me arrange a spa appointment the day before. "Mrs. Lancaster," she greeted me warmly. I winced slightly. "Please call me Lauren." "Lauren," she corrected with a smile. "How are you enjoying your stay?" We chatted for a few minutes. She asked about my family, and I gave vague, polite answers. Then she mentioned, almost casually, "I noticed your mother-in-law requested several upgraded amenities for the villa. Wine baskets, premium linens, that sort of thing." "Oh," I said, keeping my tone light. Alexis lowered her voice. "Yes, and she specifically requested they be complimentary. She said she was a returning guest and should receive VIP treatment." She hesitated. "Between you and me, management isn't thrilled, especially given, well, past history." There it was again. Patricia's previous drama was still remembered here. "I understand," I said carefully. Alexis gave me a knowing look. "I thought you might like to know, just in case anything comes up during your stay." I thanked her and continued my walk, mind racing. Patricia was still playing the VIP card, demanding freebies and special treatment based on lies. That evening, during another family dinner, I found myself seated next to Kyle. Sophia was on his other side, and Amanda was across from me, finally looking up from her phone. Midway through the meal, while Patricia was distracted by a conversation with Caroline, Kyle leaned toward me. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. I nodded. "Do you ever think about leaving?" The question caught me off guard. "Leaving the marriage?" Kyle shook his head. "No, I mean leaving these family gatherings, just." "Not coming, sparing yourself the drama." I considered his words carefully. "Would that make things better or worse?" He sighed. "Probably worse. She'd claim you were too weak to handle family or that you were purposely dividing us. She'd make you the villain either way." "Exactly," I said. Kyle ran a hand through his hair. "She did the same thing to Sophia when we first got married. The exclusions, the public comments, the constant reminders that Sophia was an outsider. It was brutal. Sophia almost left me over it." I looked at Sophia, who was watching us with a sad expression. "What changed?" I asked. Kyle's voice was bitter. "Nothing changed. Sophia just learned to tolerate it. We both did." The next night was our big family dinner at the resort's finest restaurant, a place that required reservations weeks in advance and had a dress code. I wore my best dress, did my makeup carefully, and arrived exactly on time. Patricia was already there, holding court at the table, wearing diamonds and silk. The family assembled, and Patricia stood to make another toast. She loved toasts. They gave her a captive audience and the spotlight. "To family," she began, raising her glass. "To the people who matter most in our lives, who share our blood and our history. To traditions that—" I set down my water glass with just enough force to make a soft clink. Eyes turned toward me. I smiled apologetically. "I'm so sorry to interrupt," I said sweetly, "but I just remembered the funniest story I heard about this resort. Did you all know that 3 years ago, there was a guest here who made such a scene about unpaid charges that the staff still talks about it?" The table went quiet. Patricia's face drained of color. I continued, my voice light and conversational, like I was sharing harmless gossip. "Apparently, this guest demanded all sorts of upgrades and special treatment, then threw a fit when their credit card was declined. The staff had to write off the charges just to get rid of the drama. I took a sip of water. Isn't that wild? I can't imagine making such a scene. The silence at the table was deafening. Patricia's hand trembled slightly as she lowered her champagne glass. I don't know what you're suggesting, she said, her voice tight. Oh, I'm not suggesting anything, I replied innocently. Just sharing resort gossip. I thought it was interesting. But everyone at the table understood exactly what I was suggesting. Caroline was staring at her mother with wide eyes. Amanda had actually put down her phone, mouth slightly open. Kyle was trying not to smile. Marcus looked confused, glancing between his mother and me. Patricia's face had gone from pale to flushed. That's quite enough, she snapped. You're ruining the dinner with inappropriate stories. I tilted my head. I thought we were all sharing family stories. You've certainly shared plenty about me over the past few days. I figured turnabout was fair play. Patricia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. How dare you? This is a family dinner and you… And I'm what? I interrupted, my voice still calm but with an edge now. Not family, an outsider. Someone who doesn't belong. You've made that abundantly clear, Patricia, multiple times. In public, at airports, at dinner tables, by the pool. So forgive me if I don't think family dinner applies to me anymore. Marcus finally found his voice. Lauren, maybe we should. Should what? I asked, turning to him. Should I be quiet? Should I accept being humiliated? Should I pretend everything is fine while your mother goes out of her way to exclude me from every activity, every conversation, every moment of this vacation? Marcus looked stricken. He started to speak, then stopped. The whole restaurant was watching now, other diners turning to witness our family drama. Patricia was breathing hard, her carefully constructed image cracking. You have no right to speak to me this way, she hissed. I have every right, I said. You've been speaking to me and about me in terrible ways since the moment we met. The difference is I have facts to back up my words. Should I share more resort gossip? Or maybe we should talk about the special VIP treatment you've been demanding this week, claiming you're a valued returning guest. Caroline gasped. Kyle's eyes widened. Patricia's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. That's what I thought, I said quietly. I stood up, placed my napkin on the table, and walked out of the restaurant with my head high. Behind me, chaos erupted, raised voices, Patricia's shrill denials, chairs scraping. I didn't look back. I went to the beach. The main restaurant was near the water, and I walked down to the sand, kicked off my heels, and stood at the edge where the waves lapped at my feet. My heart was pounding, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I'd just blown up a family dinner in a public restaurant. I'd exposed Patricia's lies in front of her children. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross, but I didn't regret it, not even a little bit. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see Sophia and Caroline approaching. That was incredible, Sophia said, her eyes bright. Caroline nodded slowly. I can't believe you actually said all that. I've wanted to say something like that for years. We stood there together, 3 women married into a family dominated by one controlling matriarch. She called me an outsider once too, Caroline said quietly. When I first married Marcus's brother, she said I came from the wrong kind of family, that I didn't understand their traditions. It took 2 years before she stopped making comments. She's been like this my whole life, Caroline added. Playing favorites, manipulating us, making everyone feel like they need her approval to exist. The next morning, I was having coffee in the resort cafe when the explosion happened. I heard Patricia's voice first, echoing through the lobby, shrill, furious, unmistakable. I walked toward the sound and found Patricia at the front desk, red-faced, gesturing wildly at the manager. This is completely unacceptable. I am a VIP guest. I should not be charged for these amenities. The manager, a polished woman in her 40s, remained calm. Mrs. Lancaster, as I explained the amenities you requested, the premium wine service, the upgraded linens, the private beach setup, these are not complimentary services. They're available for an additional fee. I was told they were complimentary, Patricia insisted. As a returning guest, yes, you are a returning guest, the manager interrupted smoothly. And as a returning guest, you have a flagged account due to unpaid charges from your previous stay. We require payment up front for all additional services. The lobby had gone quiet. Other guests were watching. Patricia's children had gathered, drawn by her raised voice. They stood in a loose cluster, witnessing their mother's meltdown. Amanda's face was bright red with embarrassment. Kyle looked furious. Caroline seemed close to tears. Marcus stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. Patricia turned and saw her family watching. Her expression shifted through several emotions: rage, humiliation, desperation. "This is her fault," she said, pointing at me where I stood at the edge of the crowd. "She's been poisoning the staff against me, spreading lies, trying to ruin this trip." The manager's expression hardened. "Ma'am, I don't know who you're referring to, but our records and policies are not influenced by guests. The charges stand." Marcus stepped forward finally, his voice quiet but firm. "Mom, just pay the charges." Patricia whirled on him. "Don't you dare take her side. I'm your mother. I'm the one who raised you, who sacrificed for this family, who's been cruel to my wife for 3 years," Marcus interrupted. The lobby seemed to hold its breath. I certainly did. Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. "Who excluded her from family events, who humiliated her at the airport, who spent this entire vacation making sure everyone knows she's not welcome. I've stood by and let it happen because I was afraid of upsetting you. But Lauren belongs, Mom. She's my wife. She's family. And you're the one who's been acting like an outsider to basic human decency." Patricia stared at her son like he'd slapped her. For a moment I thought she might cry, then her face hardened into a mask of fury. "Fine," she said coldly. "If that's how you all feel, then I'll leave. I'll check out today and go home. You can all have your precious vacation without me." She looked around at her children, waiting for someone to protest, to beg her to stay. Kyle spoke up. "Maybe that's for the best, Mom." Amanda nodded, her voice small but clear. "You've been really mean this whole trip." Caroline added, "We love you, but you need to stop treating people like this. It's not okay." Patricia's eyes filled with tears, real tears this time, not manipulative ones. She looked at me and I saw something I'd never seen before in her expression: uncertainty. "I just wanted," she started, then stopped. "I wanted to protect my family." "From what?" I asked quietly. "From me. I'm not a threat to your family. I married Marcus because I love him. That's all I've ever wanted, to be part of the family, not to destroy it." Patricia didn't answer. She turned and walked away, her shoulders rigid, heading toward the elevators. Patricia did check out that afternoon. She booked a flight home and left without saying goodbye to anyone. The family gathered in the villa, processing what had happened, and the atmosphere was strange, sad but also lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. We spent the remaining days of the vacation actually relaxing. Sophia and I got massages together. Kyle and Marcus went deep-sea fishing. Caroline and I had long conversations on the beach. Amanda stopped hiding behind her phone and actually joined in family activities. We laughed more. We told stories. We took pictures, and for the first time I was in all of them. Not pushed to the side or cropped out, but right in the center with everyone else. "This is how it should have been all along," Marcus said one evening as we walked along the beach. He took my hand. "I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner. I was a coward." "Yes, you were," I agreed, because it was true. "But you did it when it mattered most." He squeezed my hand. "She'll probably never forgive me." "Maybe not," I said, "but that's her choice to make." On our last evening at the resort, I stood on the balcony of my room, looking out over the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about Patricia, probably back home by now, alone, replaying the events of the trip. Part of me felt sorry for her. She'd lost something here, not just respect, but the illusion of control she'd held over her family for so long. But mostly, I felt free. I'd stood up for myself. I'd refused to be erased or diminished. I'd exposed the truth, and instead of destroying the family, it had actually brought us closer together, everyone except Patricia. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Family dinner in 20 minutes, don't be late." I smiled. Family dinner. And this time I actually belonged there. Patricia had said I didn't belong on this family vacation. She'd tried everything to push me out, to prove I was an outsider who would never fit in. But in the end, she was the one who left. She was the one who isolated herself. And I was the one surrounded by family, flawed and complicated, but finally, genuinely mine. She'd never forget this trip, but neither would I, for entirely different reasons.